Found Us. More podcast, where we want you to know God more deeply, find lasting freedom, discover your destiny and make an eternal difference. Now.
Yeah, I got in there. I'm turning my headphones. I'm trying to get everything on, and I'm like, I can't even hear myself. What's going on? Well, I think Rebecca turned it way down.
It's like the Three Little Bears story.
I've got, I'm probably going deaf. And
she did make a comment that it was screaming loud in her headset.
Yeah, oh yeah.
She's Alex is deaf.
Yeah, I am deaf. If you heard my headphones on Sunday when I play, everybody always comments about, good grief, how can you?
And then you get off stage and it's like,
yeah, right. Yeah, no, it's like. So last week, you, Rebecca, and Tamara, took over the show.
That's it.
Yeah,
It was pretty.
Did you feel outnumbered?
I listened to it.
Did you feel outnumbered? I mean,
I did.
Yeah.
Alex, can I have a little more?
There's a lot of estrogen in the room, and it was just like, oh boy, I need.
What do
some
I
help.
do?
I need backup. Somebody please get some backup.
You're like, what do I do now? Well, it turned out pretty good.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was a good show. I watched it and was just. I'm like, he looks like he's very overwhelmed right now with all the estrogen in there. But it's good, every now and then to have that going on here. But so, we were gone for a week because my son came back from the Navy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What a Father's Day gift.
I know. That's what I said to him. I said, how could you have, you couldn't have planned this more perfect?
Because it's been years you've seen him.
3 years. Yeah,
that's
3
a
years.
lot,
Man. So he got back, and so we got to see him, and I don't know. It was just good. How was your Father's Day?
It was good.
Yeah.
Pretty
special?
low key. We just we went and we had some brisket. My folks.
Oh, you can't beat that.
Yeah, Dad got the Traeger out, and it's good.
Yeah, that's always good. How about PG? You went shooting and stuff, didn't you? You said
we were going to. We didn't actually get to the shooting portion, but we shot off rockets.
Oh, all right.
And, that was really fun. So my son and my grandson came over.
Nice.
Granddaughter, and we shot this rocket off 1,100 feet high.
Yeah.
And we had to play the wind, which we didn't play correct the first time. So we were 2 properties over. My son had to climb a tree to get the rocket down from the tree. But we got her dialed in after that, so it was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was a great
What
time.
are those rockets called? They have the little engine igniter things.
Estes or something like that.
Those are fun.
Yeah,
those are super fun.
Have you seen those guys on the internet that tape a bunch of those together,
they'll beef them up,
and then they have wars with them?
It's problematic when it doesn't go off though. And
they're out there. I was watching one last night. I'm like, my wife was like, "Why are you doom scrolling right now?" I'm like, "There's too much good stuff to watch before I go to bed." And I'm sitting there, and one of the things was this guy taped some rockets together.
Yeah.
And a bunch of them were doing it, and they were just shooting them at each other in the middle of the night. Yeah, it was hilarious. I'm like, that would be fun.
Yeah.
It looked seriously.
it'd be fun until you got hit.
Well, I mean, it's not going to hurt, is it? You think?
They don't explode, I guess. I don't think it's going to feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be.
I don't know. I'd be tempted. I'd be tempted to do it. I don't know.
But the
I'll
thing
shoot
was
a rocket at you.
1,000 feet up in the air, and it was like we were all standing around for probably 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, Where is it? Where is it?
Right.
And then you would see it go poof, and then the little parachute would come out, and then you could finally, one person hopefully could see it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, don't take your eyes off it. And the rest of us are trying to figure out where it is. And I've got my grandson, I'm turning his head towards the right way.
It's over there. It's over there.
Did you guys ever do the remote controlled airplanes?
Yeah.
I love those.
Oh, yeah,
videos.
they were great.
You did them?
Oh, yeah.
They're
just
not easy.
Just the small stuff, though.
Okay.
Yeah. Not the
Like the real, like the ones you fly off. And you did
it's
that.
like, I didn't, but those are great videos on the internet.
Oh, yeah, the model. Yeah.
I love those. Look, my F-16 that cost me $3,200.
Right.
Yeah.
Made voyage 1 second.
And it's crazy tue now because with drones and how accessible they are. You're like, let's go shoot a rocket off, or this airplane that's really hard to drive, or these drones are like, you can do everything with them. It's crazy.
Well, that one that Pastor Matt had a couple years ago, that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It'd follow you around, and I'm like, that is awesome.
I did. My nephew had a really low end one when they first came out. I put a cinder block out, and then we flew it up and shot some video of Harbor Light from way up high, and it landed back on the cement block.
Really? Yeah. It's so precise. That's so crazy.
Yeah, now, somebody in church is starting to get into this. Bobby Love. Bobby Love, he graduated from here.
Okay.
He's getting into droning. I just met him in Walmart, and he's like,
"Oh, really?"
Yeah, he goes, I'm working with some pretty big drones now, and it's a lot of for real estate and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. He goes, you have to go to school now because you have to get a license for it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, you can't fly them around anymore without a license.
One morning, Fox had everything from this big all the way up to like half the size of this room, and just amazing,
pretty crazy
the stuff that they can payload hundreds of pounds. And
Well, did you see the parade? Right?
I didn't get to see it.
They had drones in that, and they were like the size of a car, floating just above the road.
That's so scary.
And following the guys as they're walking, and they're all like, these are all like AI controlled, it's all
scary.
doing it on its own. Nobody's like holding a controller. They had those, and they had these robotic dogs. Did you see that?
I've seen those dogs.
Seen those videos. Yeah,
They had like 12 of them marching in the parade.
Really?
Yeah, it was just it was like so surreal. I'm like, at first I thought it was like AI, and I'm like, can't be real.
Sure.
And then somebody from a news agency went up to one of the guys that was marching and asking him, and all 12 of them are marching, and then the guy stops. They all just like, halted, and they're all like waiting to go. And they just kept marching along, and they're all apparently robotic AI.
Yeah, this
doing their own thing now.
Not good.
You saw that this was a few years ago where you could put the little clip on your sleeve, and then your drone. So when you're mountain biking, the drone is following you.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff has gone so far now.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when Carson bought his first drone. It was a little thing he bought at some little
And
mall.
they were hard to drive.
They were hard to fly.
You had to get the propellers right and all that stuff. And
you always dropped out of the air, or ran into the house or something like that.
Put
but
it
now,
in a tree.
not anymore. And then you watch on ESPN, they have drone racing now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's pretty
and
cool.
those guys are going like massively fast.
And flying through stuff like this big.
Yeah.
I remember I was in Guatemala on a missions trip, and one of the missionaries were there. He had somebody come from the States with a drone to do like aerial mapping, and it was a pretty like poor neighborhood, and he put that thing in the air. Every person in this village, there was like 500 people now outside staring at this thing.
Oh yeah,
it was the to do, man. It was pretty fun. So then he took all these photos, and it's like 500 Guatemalans all waving at it, and like, it was
like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Well, to them, it's probably like
I'd never seen it. Yeah,
it's like the future,
right?
Yeah, I don't know. They come down in price too. I mean, they're
like
pretty reasonable now. Yeah, that I was telling Amy. I said, remember when we got our first flat screen TV plasma? It was like a little over $1,000.
Yeah.
And we were walking through Walmart, and they were selling the 75 incher.
Yeah, man.
Now. They had one in there for
$350.
Yeah, $350, $400. I'm like, this is unreal.
It's incredible. 4K, like unbelievable.
Yeah. So I don't know. Well, welcome to this week's podcast. We have the usual suspects in the room.
Yeah.
That normally aren't here. We've come back, and I've had a week off. Ted had a week off. PG held down the fort, and he did a good job.
Did a great job.
It was good. But we're back. We're back in the saddle. So do you ever wonder why you listen to the MORE podcast? I'll tell you why. MORE stands for Maximizing Opportunities for Right Now and Eternity. So stop asking why you listen. Just never forget to listen and pass it on. And this week's sponsor is awesome. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these before, but this is my emotional support animal. Yeah.
There you go. Screaming goats.
The screaming goat. This little guy says everything I can't say.
Okay.
That's right.
Because being a Christian and all, you can't really say anything.
I like Screaming Goat.
Tired of silent suffering? Introducing the Deaf Screaming Goat, your new stress relief assistant. One press and it screams all the things you can't say in meetings, traffic, or during awkward prayer requests. Not FDA approved, but emotionally accurate. The MORE podcast probably pretends this is a real sponsor. This is the Screaming Goat. Yeah, you need to get one of these.
Do you remember?
There you go.
Do you remember the trend that was like people would replace the Screaming Goat with like sayings on songs?
Oh yeah. They did that with what's her name?
It's like Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift song.
Trouble.
Yeah, that was the best.
Super funny. Yeah.
I mean, are they real? It's like a real thing.
I think they do. Go, PG.
I don't know.
Come on.
I don't know.
You're the 4-H guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they do. I think that's a thing.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think
we're gonna say it's a thing.
I think we're gonna say it's a thing.
Do you like me to fact check it while we're
Can you
here?
fact check it? Yeah. Well, I know that there's the fainting goats because we have people in church that have fainting goats.
Yeah.
Why
Those
do
are
they do
pretty-
that?
I don't really know. And I asked them about it, and they didn't really explain anything to me. But yeah, I mean, if you scare them, their first response is to freeze up and fall over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So according to Goats Authority,
Yeah. Here we go.
can goats actually scream? Yes, in fact, they can.
Really?
They produce a high-pitched, loud noise that sounds like a human scream.
Okay.
So there you
Wow.
go.
awesome.
Yeah.
That would be
So-
that'd be fun to be like hanging out and seeing some goats scream at each other.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be asking God,
You know,
like, why
we
would you do that?
have said since we've got our new drum enclosure is that instead of the screaming goat is you can just go in that drum enclosure and shut the door and start screaming. That can be your therapy session.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can do it. It's a scream room.
Right.
Yeah. It's a scream room. I have been tempted, and I've been obviously stopped by the Lord Himself about getting some fart spray.
Oh man, that would be
And
so
just
funny.
one of these
That would be
days,
so
just
funny.
spray a little bit in that fan.
Yeah, we've been working on how do we air condition that thing, and
Yeah.
that's always the conversation that comes up of like, hey, we got to get some AC in there. That's going to be really warm for summer months, and then it's like, well, we could also pipe in.
Air conditioning is susceptible to that smell anyways. 'Cause
Right.
there's a moisture pan that picks
Oh,
up
yeah.
and that stuff can
Moldy
get
and-
moldy and
yeah.
it can smell bad.
Yeah.
We had that problem here at Harbor Life for a little
really?
while. The air conditioner grew some kind of bad
Ugh.
mold in there and it was spraying around the room. That wasn't good.
Why does it smell gross in here every time it's colder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It's
weird.
'cause of that thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You want to be hot and not smell, or cold and
well, that's the thing. I try to not run my air conditioner. We have a little
Yeah.
one in the living room.
Okay.
I try not to run it until it's like really hot. Like you can't
That's a
stand
dad
it.
move right there
Yeah.
for sure.
And then, oh, look at this guy, Eli there.
Hi, Eli. There he
buddy.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have just one little unit in the bedroom window, and so the bedroom stays cool at nighttime. But
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, last night it was so funny because Carson and I, we had some air conditioners we picked up at a deal, and so one of them is working just fine. I put the other one in our bedroom window, and it doesn't work. Like
Yeah.
it apparently just gave up the ghost during the winter. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, Amy, I'm going to pull this out, and I'll get it replaced or whatever, And so last night I go in there, and it's on. I'm like, what'd you do to this thing? I said, Carson and I sat there forever trying to get this thing to come on, the fan to come on. She's like, it's putting out cold air. I'm like, well, yeah, because it's colder outside, so it's pulling in air from the outside. I don't know. But air conditioners drive me nuts.
That's kind of the Northern Michigan thing. We'll go to bed and it'll be 85.
Yeah.
Got the
Yeah.
air conditioner on. I wake up in the morning and then I step into the hallway.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's cooler out here than in my
Yeah.
bedroom.
Yeah, that's
My
it.
air conditioner is actually pumping 60-degree air into the
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like Rob Polly's is a fantastic man, but he has many isms.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
One of Rob Polly's isms would be you live in Northern Michigan, no air conditioning.
Right.
That's what everybody
You know
tells
what
me.
you're gonna want to do now.
For like
Yeah.
$200, you can not be sweating. You just
is
suffer
this other
through
one
that.
now? What you're going to want to do is
Exactly that. Yes. Now, what you're gonna want to do? Just dad.
Yeah, I need the air conditioner.
Never. Like I remember as a kid, and this is Rob Polyism, man. We were just talking about this Father's Day. I went to college, and I went in my dorm room, and I had new bunkmate, that kind of thing. And I was like, man, I'm just sneezing all the time. And he's like, yeah, do you have allergies? I'm like, what? No one actually has allergies. Allergies aren't real. And then he's like,
Yeah.
here, take this Sudafed. And I was like, I immediately felt better. I was like, we didn't believe in this in the Polly's house.
I know. Yeah.
Rub some dirt on it.
Yeah.
You're good. You don't need to worry
Sneeze
about
for
it.
3 months. You're fine.
That's crazy to me. I've had people that have been suffering with sinus, infection and all
Yeah.
that stuff, and I'm like, take Claritin. I mean, you're in allergy season right now. Oh, I don't take stuff. I don't take anything. And then they finally do take my
Do you
recommendation.
want to feel better?
Yeah, and they do, and they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like,
Science can be.
why
good
would
for
you suffer?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. Maybe I'm just
it's
too
like
easy.
a German, yeah. We're just stout and
Right. Same thing with headaches. I got friends that will not take Tylenol or an ibuprofen or nothing, and then I hear all day, I'm hurting. I can't, I can't move. Here,
Right.
and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, it's like magic.
sure.
Yeah. Well.
Oh,
I have a friend that has salon paws. It's that patch you put on your back.
yeah.
He's like, yep, one a day.
yeah. What is it for?
Salon
It's
paw.
called salon paws. It's just like Ben Gay on a patch.
Oh, okay.
And they rubs it on your back and just keep it there all day.
Yeah.
So he uses it
Every day.
Oh man.
He's building
Yeah.
up on a resistance.
Yeah. Right.
Have you seen
Gonna be
those
covered? His back will just be
commercials
one big
with
patch.
those what is it, blue emu or emu oil or whatever it is you can get. It's for that reason.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had a guy that swore by that, and he just lathered himself up with that too. And I'm like, dude, you know, your shirt, it's like sticking to your body.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff
I'm
on
like,
there.
here comes Bill. Oh, there's the salon
Yeah,
boss.
yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, well, it's like Bengay, right?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like that. Yeah,
Smell like a medical cabinet.
all the time. I used to go with these guys that would golf, and they were older than me at the time, and they would just lather their knees up with that stuff. I mean, it was just like it's before it even started.
Yeah.
First hole. Well, let's get ready for this whole thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, killing me. Oh man, I had a good one for Rebecca too today.
Have to save it.
Hang on to it.
She had one for Ted for next time, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'll do yours, Pastor Gary. He's the only
Okay.
pastor we know who can preach a 3-point sermon and handcraft a salad fork out of 200-year-old driftwood.
Yeah.
All before lunch.
There you go.
Part theologian, part lumberjack, all heart. Give it up for Pastor Gary, the man who thinks every spiritual breakthrough starts with a properly sanded spoon.
I did one this morning.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's kind of like the Karate Kid, you know.
Yeah.
If you wax on, wax off, you sit there and you work on a spoon long enough, you're going to feel a lot better about yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do yours, Alex?
Yeah, go ahead and do mine.
Okay. The man with all of the talent sitting across the way from
Oh.
us. The man who, when his teacher asked for an essay on what is awesome, turned in a blank page with just his name on it.
There it is.
Got an A+ on that one.
Yeah, I probably did that at some point. Yeah. We'll move over. Tom Cruise, Pastor Ted makes Mission Impossible look like Sunday school crafts. He's a Canadian spy with a Bible in one hand and getaway plan that includes zero paperwork and maximum stealth. He's preached in 5 countries and vanished from 3 church lock-ins. Pastor Ted, the legend, the mission, the mystery.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
So I was again at Father's Day at the Polly's house, and I was talking to my mom. I was like, "Mom, I'm on this thing. It's a podcast." And then I had to explain to my 75-year-old mom what a podcast was, which is fun because you're like, "Hey, do you remember radio programs?" Yes. Okay, it's that. You know what I mean?
Just on the internet.
Yeah,
It's just on the
exactly.
internet, yeah.
And so, I was saying they make fun of me because I'm Canadian. She's like, "You're not Canadian." She got really offended. Like, excuse me, that is not reserved for you. I wear that. And I was like, well, no, it's just a joke, Mom. And they're like, what are they making fun about Canadians for? I'm like, it's just all the good stereotypes, like Canadian bacon and maple syrup, Mom.
Right.
It's fine. It's okay. She's like, okay.
And that they're super nice all the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Don't
That's
offend her
super-
because we're going up to your
That's
cabin
right.
in
I know,
August. and
she
she's-
told me about
yeah.
it. She's super excited you guys are going.
Question: is there a Canadian flag anywhere near on that property?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, the American one will be there, too.
Yeah, but it's the Canadian headquarters.
It's a lot of Americans, on that little lake. So
They're all up there, yeah.
They'll, which one do you put over the other one when you're in Canada?
Oh,
you gotta
yeah.
watch
Oh,
that.
that's a good, good point.
Which, and lots of Canadian, we don't have to go down the political road, but not everyone loves President Trump, so which do you want to have those conversations when you're on relaxation
No, you
vacation? So do you put the flag out, that kind of thing?
Right,
So,
yeah.
oh, gosh, yeah.
We're just going to put it out just to, ward people off. Really come over
But
and
it's
talk,
usually Americans,
Yeah.
right? So
I ran into a chicken farmer on one of my last trips in British Columbia. Has 2 million chickens.
Whoa.
Yeah, they
That's a
do 75,000 chickens a day. I can't remember. It's crazy. But anyways, he's like, hey, don't listen to the news. We all love Trump. So
Yeah, that's what he said.
he just let me know.
Yeah, well, that's true. Like the people you're gonna hang out with, usually when you're there,
Right.
you're not going to some dumb university,
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Yeah, you're hanging out with normal.
I would imagine it'd be different in Toronto.
So all chicken farmers of Canada are behind. That's right.
all the chicken farmers unite. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Chicken farmers for Trump. Canadian chicken farmers for Trump.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I told my my wife there's sometimes I just got to quit watching the news already because between the people that say the bad stuff all the time and always changing the news or lying or whatever, it just gets after a while you're like I can't take it anymore.
Yep.
I'm liberal.
So I
out.
highly suggest going to CBN News.
Yeah.
Okay. And Chris Mitchell is the bureau chief for the Middle East, and he was an elder at Harbor Light for probably 10
really?
years.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Chris
Wow.
Mitchell. Chris Mitchell.
Huh.
Go to him. You're getting the straight
CBN
shooting
Moon
fact.
News.
CBN
Sorry.
News. Yep.
And he's not gonna It's just gonna
Chris
be good.
Mitchell.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
Yeah.
great.
And I
That's
just go
neat
to my
resource.
YouTube. Just go to YouTube, CBN News, and then you'll get daily, at least daily, sometimes
Wow.
even hourly updates.
Where does he live now?
Israel, Jewish.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. I went over
Oh.
there and I had lunch with him when we went over.
That's great.
Really? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's probably got to be going through it
He's
right
an
now.
amazing man.
Yeah.
Amazing
Huh.
man.
Well, and he still lives there then?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's on CBN News.
That's
every
crazy.
single day, multiple
Chris
times
Mitchell.
a day.
Huh.
Really?
Chris Mitchell.
Hey, so can we take it in a serious turn here?
Yeah, here, let's do it.
I wanted to get your guys' perspective. Is World War III imminent?
No.
No.
Nah.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I mean, I have opinions. I want you guys are smart guys.
Let's
who I
hear your
respect.
conspiracy.
I mean, there's no conspiracy.
Oh, it's no conspiracy.
So you're talking like World War III, the stuff we see in the Book of Revelation?
Both. Like just on the net. Yeah. So we're not. You're not worried we're gonna have war on our soil. Okay.
I
Because
don't
the
think so.
alarmists, want to go that route, right?
Hey.
Oh, yeah, they always do.
the number one terrorist supported country in the world is getting their heinies kicked.
Right.
Yeah.
They can barely.
And they don't need our help.
yeah, they
to
can
get
barely.
them- get them
Make
kicked.
a.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
An empty threat.
Although I did look at the map of, like, in case a missile did come our way, what area is going to get hit? Michigan's pretty good. Where we're at right now, we're sitting pretty good. Mm-hmm. I mean,
I don't think they could get it here.
I don't
they've
think
got
so either.
the tech to do it.
But
Do they?
They say they do.
no,
Right, but I think that's posturing, don't you think?
I think
and
they
Israel
say
just
everything.
took all that out too, right? So now they're not going to do it. but-
They they're going to say all kinds of stuff, But I mean, when I was sitting there, I was watching the map. I was looking at the map, and they're showing like if it hit here, how's it going to affect the rest of the nation? Northern Michigan.
yeah, we're all right.
I'm like, we're in the
good.
golden zone
Sure.
right here.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to bother us at all. Nobody wants to go after Canada north of us, so we're good.
Yeah, I think.
I think the only danger we have are the Sulaks.
Yep.
Yeah, that could
That's
be
the
a
only
problem.
target.
Yeah, and you have the resource of natural water too. So whether you want to take that out or not. But I'm not super concerned of that. I just wondered again, you hear the alarmists say, "Here we go."
Oh yeah.
With the last 4 years of an open border, who knows in our country?
I think that's legit.
And I think that's why, as a discerning, conservative person politically, you go, hey, like we got to know who's in our country, and there was just 4 years of an open door, so we got to figure that out.
Well, and there, I can imagine
It's
you're going to
okay
have sleeper
to-
cells popping up. But I mean, our government is like going unbelievably gangbusters on all this stuff. I mean, they just arrested a guy yesterday who was run for mayor of New York because he's been shielding illegals. So I mean, they're like picking up people left and right. So they're not afraid to
That's
shut it down.
I for sure. I'm like, man, this is just exactly what we voted for.
Yeah.
We're getting it. We're getting exactly what we voted for.
I honestly, I was telling Amy the other night, I'm like, I actually feel safer now than I ever have before, just because I know that things are getting taken care of. I'm not like having to deal with it. I don't know. That's just, people were putting on the internet about how, the Bible talks about when Israel's surrounded, that's when we're going to have, I mean, like, Israel's been surrounded the whole time.
Yeah, right.
And, people have been shooting at them forever. I mean, when we were over in 2012, we would go driving around and you'd hear the sirens go off and then hear boom, 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 so somebody was shooting rockets at that point, gunfire on the border. So, I mean, it's been going on forever.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nothing new.
Yep.
It just, I think it's probably hyped a lot more just now because of all the stuff we're dealing with politically here. And that,
and sadly, that's what's going to get a click.
Oh yeah, it's perfect
guys,
clickbait. Yeah,
simmer down. It's not that big a deal. Headline.
Yeah, right.
It's not going to do it. World
That will
War
not-
III is imminent.
no, I don't think it'd be. I really don't think. I think they're going to work out a deal at some point. I mean, they already sounded like they're willing to talk. They want to get it taken care of. Iran wants to get it taken care of already because they're realizing that they have no choice.
Well, and they got to start playing ball with the nukes situation. Like, hey, man, you quit enriching uranium then.
Right, and they can't really do it now because I think Israel took them out last night.
I think that's all done for them.
So I think we're good.
Yeah.
I don't get too worried about it.
Okay.
anymore. And of course, because we are in Michigan,
Well, I trust you two men. You guys are smart guys, so all right.
I'm not worried about
I'm going with you.
I'm not worried about it. We're ready.
All right.
We're good to go. We're going to take a 90 break, come back with Harbor Light Bible Trivia. Forgot what the buttons were for.
This is more podcast. We'll be right back.
Okay, so We have. What did we decide on a gift for this Bible trivia?
Not that I'm aware of, but we can do something. What do you want to do?
I don't know. We got to come up with something good for the summer.
You guys giving away some speakers? Beach speaker?
I mean, we could. I mean, I don't know where those came from. Honestly, because we had
beach speaker?
That was like 3 years ago.
Right. Time to bring them back.
Yeah,
You know,
we can do a Bluetooth speaker. We'll have to look for the charging cables for those. We had a box of those. It takes a regular charging cable.
Right, yeah, you can just get that wherever.
But yeah, I mean, those are pretty cool when we got those out. I mean, those are a pretty hot commodity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one sitting in my house. I don't ever use it, but it just sits
Good
there.
memorabilia.
It's memorabilia, yeah. I mean, that's stuff that you'll never
That's right.
ever get anywhere else.
20 years from now on eBay.
What's crazy is so like
50 cents.
Pastor Matt handed out these like really super cool youth t-shirts or sweatshirts the other day for youth ministry. I went to the Goodwill, and they're there.
Oh, they're
right there.
there.
Somebody,
Right.
I got it for $5. It was
What?
awesome. Yeah.
I know,
What?
that's-
somebody turning in their
PG,
youth-
I know a guy. You could probably get one for free, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I had to buy it.
right. You're like, this ain't sitting in here.
I found our podcast T-shirt
You did?
in Sheboygan at the thrift store at Salvation Army.
Did you buy it?
I didn't, but I was like, I was walking around and Amy's like, "Look what I found," and I'm like, "That's on my T-shirt."
That's how you know you've made it, though.
That's
when
it.
your stuff is now
right.
finally made it all the way through.
Yeah,
It's
the
life
whole
cycle.
hand-me-down system, and it makes it over to Goodwill.
people are probably looking at it going, "Who are these people?" You know,
Right.
I don't know. We'll do it. Well, if you want to be part of Harbor Light Bible Trivia, all you got to do is contact us via email at harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com. harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, all lowercase. And we're currently in the Covenant series right now.
We are.
You
We're
have
actually
another-
coming around the bend.
We got
This
one
will
more
be the
week?
Last week, right
Last
here.
week, okay. So we've talked about a lot of things, but what's the question for this week?
Okay, the question for this week is why? Give me the another name for the word testament. So we have the New Testament and we have the Old Testament. What's another word for testament?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yep.
You have to do a little study on
You
that one.
said it Sunday.
Did I? Okay.
Did he?
No. We talked about it in the green room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, the green room.
Do you remember
conversation.
this? You
I
were
wasn't
back
in there. I wasn't.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yep.
We talked about it in the green room.
Yep. There you go.
green-
So that's a
green
trivia
room.
question for this weekend. We have the New Testament and the Old Testament. What's another word for testament?
It's another word for testament. Okay, so if you want to be a part of that, all you got to do is send it into harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com. harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, all lowercase, and let us know what you think.
Volveré enseguida. Más Podcast es el lugar para escuchar sobre todas las cosas buenas de la Biblia sin todas las calorías.
Las calorías.
I have my Las Cabos shirt on today.
I like
I came
that.
prepared for the commercial.
Okay, so what was, I couldn't see it, but what was Tamara's look on her face when these spots were playing? Did she?
She was tracking. It was
She
good.
was like,
I think she's
She's
a
a
listener.
listener.
yeah, she's like, what is
She
going
knows,
on?
She knows the vibe of more podcasts.
Yeah, she knows. We're tend to be
Everybody's
little
got a
bit-
theme today.
Do you remember, when you were a kid and you first started listening to the radio and you were like, how do they swap out these bands so fast? Did you ever have that thought? Maybe
when
you're
I was
smarter
a kid,
than me.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I
was like,
figured that out.
like first or second grade. I'm listening to the radio. I'm like, man,
yeah.
how are they getting these bands in here to play all these songs like this?
So quick, so quick.
fast
Yeah.
turnaround. And then I realized it was a recording because I had never seen anything recorded before.
Sure.
You know, so
Well, the real artists of the
I'm from a
radio
different
era,
century than you are, but
when they would use still records on their air.
yeah.
And so I did an internship through Harbor Light at WLTO when it was in Harbor Springs.
Okay.
And they were just switching off. Like, so they had some DJs that were still doing records and
Yeah,
then
no
hooked to
way.
these things that look like 8 tracks.
Really?
They call them hot tracks. And so what's amazing to me is they can get that needle
Yep.
onto the song,
drop it.
drop it
Yeah,
right on the
that's
song
not
they want.
easy.
It is not easy.
Yeah.
But they were able to do that, and they did
Yeah.
it
Wow.
like seamlessly every time. And
So
I'm
the
like,
first year Harbor Light started, so we're talking 48 years ago, Harbor Light was on the radio in the evening. My dad would go do a radio show.
Oh, really?
And
Oh, wow.
kind of what we're doing right now,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
kind of talk about the Bible, talk about things people could call in. And my uncle was the DJ that was dropping the needle, and it was
That's
amazing. They were like
awesome.
pulling out stuff, sticking it
Yeah.
down, and
Does that exist someplace?
the
recording
recording of that kind of
yeah.
stuff? No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Let's listen to
both
the new
my-
song by the Gaithers.
Both my dad's library.
Was it
burned
Christian
down.
radio up here?
It was
just
it was
a radio-
just it was a
this
radio
section?
spot.
Yeah, okay.
In Sunday night kind of thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
The latest song from the Gaithers.
But then
Here
my
we
dad,
go.
my dad, every once in a while, it was his older brother who was actually doing that. And he's like, "Listen, that's not a Christian song." Torn between two lovers. It's like, that's not a Christian song.
That's not. Oh,
Harbor Light has all these
And-
new people showing up thinking, man, this church is pretty on top of it.
That's like at my grandma's funeral. I did my grandma's funeral.
Yeah.
She was 199 when she died. And that same uncle that we're talking about, he was in charge of the music for
Yeah.
it. And he did You Are My Sunshine.
Yeah.
Do you know what the whole You Are My Sunshine song? The guy's having an affair on his wife.
No way.
oh, really?
And I'm like,
Really?
Yeah. And I got literally, I got like, what in the world are we doing at my grandma's funeral? We're doing songs like this. No joke.
No way. I didn't know that
would
about
be
that song.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. Yeah. There are some good. I'll tell you, it's hilarious because somebody was one of our worship singers was listening to a song on the radio, and they're like, "I just love the song. Whenever it comes on, it's such an inspirational song." And so they were sharing the song, and everybody's like, "That's not a Christian song." And they're like, "No, it's you." And she's like telling us the lyrics, and I'm like, "That's not what they're talking about."
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
They were totally oblivious to the fact that song was about it.
Sure.
I don't know. I've got caught in that because when I was teaching at the school, there's this one song that comes on all the time and it reminds me of one of the old early '90s songs.
Yeah.
Rock songs, and so every time I'm like, yeah, I love that song, and I said that out loud to the students, and
They're like jaws hit the floor.
they're like, have you listened? Have you read the lyrics?
Sure.
And so somebody printed off the lyrics, and I'm like, dear Lord,
Yeah.
what am I doing?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, but the tune
Oh yeah.
was like very familiar, so I don't know.
Wow.
Well,
watch it.
we are taking a closer look at the Davidic covenant and David's heartfelt plan to bring the Ark of the Covenant back to Judea in 2 Samuel 7. His desire was good, but his method, well, not quite right. And that's the lesson for all of us. Good intentions still need God's direction. God doesn't just care what we do, he cares how we do it. And David had to learn that worship isn't about personal passion alone, it's about obedience to holy God. And from that moment came one of the most beautiful promises in all of Scripture, a covenant that pointed to Christ. So we're going to open up our Bibles. If you have your Bible to 2 Samuel, you can follow along with us and discover what happens when we try to do the right thing our way and how God lovingly leads us to his way. It was a good message.
It really was.
It was good.
It was a lot of fun. I got a chance to do the mini version of the covenant with Moses, which was a setup for this. And of course, we're saving a lot of the Moses stuff for a series coming up this summer called the Red Sea Rules.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to be a really good one. But the Ark of the Covenant, right, was an important piece for the covenant that God strikes with David. And it was kind of interesting because you have the covenant with Abraham where you see the shedding of blood and the Lord goes between the two pieces of the sacrifice. And this was a different form of that covenant where now God and David are having this relational conversation. And also you can see how David is just so blessed that he wants to bless the Lord. And it was a lot of fun to examine that motivation, the difference between doing just enough to be in a relationship and going way above and beyond. And I know that, Ted, you being a single guy, I was thinking about all those young people in our sanctuary that were listening in, and I do lots of stuff about marriage and relationship. And if you can enter into a relationship saying, how can I give? How can I express my love? And how can I outserve the other person? It changes the entire trajectory of that relationship, both our relationship with God, but it's also our relationship with others. My dad did counseling for some folks here at Harbor Light whose marriage was definitely heading in the wrong direction. Yeah. And that one idea, I'm going to try to outserve my spouse, and as long as they both agree to do that, it completely flipped and changed the course that marriage was on to where now it's probably one of our most shining examples of what marriage is to look like.
Yeah, I like that. It's interesting when you do marriage counseling, the term always is thrown out there. It's a 50-50. And I always tell people I hate that.
Yeah,
I hate
absolutely.
that phrase.
It's 100,
and it could even be more than that. I mean, you need to give everything you can. And it's interesting though. I mean, I've told people before I didn't learn that until later on in life in my own marriage. Because you kind of get into the marriage, even though you're like it's a covenant, but really it's contractional a lot of ways as far as you're thinking as you're getting into it, because you're like, oh well, this is you do this for me, and I'm going to do that for you, and that's the way people talk about it. But when we talk about this idea about serving each other, you don't really get in that mindset for quite a while. You're like, I need to do this. And I'll tell you, I'm sure you have stories too, but when you start thinking in that way, it does change the dynamics of your relationship, where you're saying, I've got to do, regardless of, I'm going to do as much as I can to serve that person. And it changes how the whole conversation happens, how everything happens. One of the funny things in my house was I never was the one that did most of the housework. I never did it. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, you know what? My wife, when she comes home, she's tired, doesn't want to really do it. So I started taking that on, I started doing things little by little and not really, making a big deal about it. And I'll tell you, it changed our conversation. It changed the way she felt, she didn't feel alone, and likewise with me and certain things that I needed her to be a part of. But I don't think people realize how important that is to understand that whole thing that you brought up on Sunday about the out serving each other. It takes away a lot of the other issues that we get so caught up in marriage, the little things that seem to drive us nuts with toothpaste, toilet paper, how we put it on the roll, that kind of stuff. That doesn't matter,
What did you guys feel like when I went through the moving of the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, and the little mishap they had, the stumble of the oxen, and this Uzzah guy, it's not Uzziah, it's two different guys, but Uzzah puts his hand out there to steady the cart and then gets struck dead by that. When you hear that, familiarity breeds contempt, where you just start, God's your buddy, and God does want to have a relationship with you that's tight, but he's also God.
Yeah.
What did you guys feel or think about that when we talked about having a relationship with the Lord where you continue to remember that he's holy?
Yeah. That's a tough one, isn't it? That is a tough one. I think one of the biggest problems that we have in the church right now is that we don't see God as sovereign. We see him as the John 3:16 fuzzy wuzzy teddy bear that we want to embrace and hug.
And I love the way that you just said that, because David says it over and over, "O sovereign Lord, O sovereign Lord." He says it multiple times.
It's hard, isn't it? I mean, I think that's one of the things we've done the worst part of in the church, because we've really kind of made God so approachable, into our conversation and our language, that he is not king.
I think we do that as humans as well as Christians. Our pendulum swings so far, for a long, long time, for like over 100 years, God was the fiery God of death. And then we swing it all the way over here, and now we have God as the warm fuzzies you just mentioned, where I can live with someone because God wants me to be happy.
Right, yeah.
Right? Therefore, I can justify anything I want, right? And it's going to start swinging. It's going to swing back. We want to be in that place where we want a tight relationship with God, it's intimate and good, and I can really confess and talk with him. But always remember that he is holy and has a standard that we have to live by.
It's not, I think the interesting thing is in our language in the church, we've tried to remove the idea of the fear of the Lord. We don't like that term. And I don't know if it's just because we've become parents, people that in relationships where we don't like to say that phrase, but it seems like we have to understand that phrase. We need to understand what it is to have the fear of the Lord, not like that he's going to smite us in 5 seconds, but the fact is it's a fear that respects and understands his position and place over us. And I was just listening to a pastor the other day, you probably know who it is, talking about how that's one of the things that's least talked about in the church, the modern day church, is what does it mean to understand the fear of the Lord in the proper context, not in the sense that everybody wants to make it sound so negative,
right?
But the fear that leads to a faith that's solid, a maturity that's solid, growth.
I think that's exactly what I was thinking about. Is that when you have a healthy fear of the Lord, it leads to God being in that right position of someone who is sovereign and someone who is trustworthy in all circumstances.
Absolutely.
And so when I have a healthy fear of the Lord, it benefits me. Right? That's not the goal, or that's not what I should start with, is I'm going to fear you, Lord, because it's going to benefit me. You fear God because he is holy and sovereign. But when I when I think about the Lord and his great love for me, I understand and know that, I am so thankful that on my worst day, his love doesn't change for me. And that starts with that he is holy and sovereign and set apart and far above all those things that we ascribe to him. And certainly David did too. And so, you talked about the pendulum swing, PG. I was listening to a story. It was the youth pastor. I can't remember his name. It was the youth pastor during the Brownsville revival. It was kind of fun because Pastor Matt knew this guy, right? And so he was there during that time. And he talked about kind of the season within revival there and kind of the different steps. And he talked about the pendulum swinging, you know, that you saw these amazing move of God, this healthy fear of God, this passion and utter desire. They literally met like every day for like 2-3 years.
Right.
And the guy kept asking him, would you do that differently? And he goes, maybe, but there's just this hunger and fire for the Lord. And he said, once we made it programmatic and once we made it, legalistic, he used that term, like there was a lot of legalism at the end, and that's kind of when we felt the shift change, that we weren't in this revival season anymore. But I love that image of a pendulum swing of we want to be in that middle place of understanding God's great love for you is true. His mercies are new every day, but he is also holy, sovereign, and set apart. And that is not just your grandpa who's going to pat you on the back all the time.
Right.
That he does bring correction. He does bring redirection.
Which I really, really was excited about on Sunday, to be able to say, look, David messed up and an innocent person died because of his mess up.
Yeah.
But he didn't quit.
Right.
Just took a break.
Yeah.
Check the manual again. Said, all right, we're going to get back on the horse and we're going to get up.
Yeah.
Please don't be a quitter. We're all going to make mistakes, especially if you're a risk taker. If you're pushing your relationship with God and whatever, your relationship with your spouse, children, whatever it is, you're gonna take risks. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna misstep. That's okay. Get back on the horse. Figure out where you stepped off and get back on. That was beautiful. I really felt like that was a really powerful point, because every dad sits there on Father's Day and they know, count your blessings, but they also know count your mistakes, right? We all know them.
Yeah.
Right? I can still relive and think about some of the stuff I've done that I regret. But you know what? That's not going to stop me from moving forward. That's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Right? No failures, always a lesson.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing for young fathers as well, because we had some fathers that just became fathers this year, and for them to hear that, that those are the things that matter most in your growth personally, is to do that. And, it's hard to realize that those things, God uses both the good and the bad in our situations to help us grow and follow him. But it's important that we see that. And I think David, out of everybody in the Bible, is one of those guys that's the most real in that regard, is that you see him making massive mistakes and then, asking for forgiveness, repenting of it, and then moving forward. And, God's like, he honors that. And I think that, to me, David's story has always been sort of like the top shelf idea of what it is to understand grace, to see what grace looks like in the life of a normal person. You know?
He's the anti-superhero.
He is.
He does everything, not everything. He does things imperfectly, right? And the Lord still uses them
and blesses him and wants to bless him. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then I had a lot of fun being able to just kind of stand on the stage and kind of almost like get in character and be like, I'm standing on my veranda. Things are pretty good. Oh my gosh, my next door neighbor's living in a tent.
Yeah.
My next door neighbor is God. It was fun to be able to kind of do it that way.
Sure.
Now, as a pastor, there's maybe a second level layer to what was going on. I wanted people to pick up on that we are all super blessed. Yeah. And we're all living in wonderful houses, and that there's a day coming at Harbor Light where we're going to start to build the temple for the Lord, and that's going to be a time to pour it all out.
Yeah.
So hopefully that was kind of getting through in some particular way.
I thought it was so funny. I think it was the second service. He said, "Who is David's neighbor?" And somebody goes, "Bathsheba."
My wife he spent a lot of time on that veranda because he was looking at God and he was looking over at Bathsheba.
I just thought it was so funny because you're like, who's his neighbor? Bathsheba. And I'm dying laughing.
Right.
Because I don't know if you heard it or not.
I didn't. I just
And I was
kept
like,
on
oh my
believing.
gosh, that's hilarious. And then people are like, no, it's God.
But that was a lot of fun to be able
Yeah.
to kind of share that way, and then the conversation that happens between the two of them. You know, the Lord is like, "Hey, I've blessed you. I've taken you from being a shepherd boy out in the back 40, and now here you are as king." And David's like, "I just want to bless you for that." He goes, "Well, I'm just so blessed that you want to bless me, so I'm going to bless you for that."
Right.
Yeah, I'm blessing
you know,
more,
and just
yeah.
kind of see this thing going around and around. That was a lot of fun to be able to see this relationship that David had with God.
Well, and that's it,
Yeah.
right? It's the heart posture, not just what you do.
Yeah.
Right. It's the heart posture of David that,
Mhm.
the Lord loves. And
Yeah.
that's pretty fun.
Yep.
And I think you brought that up in the message too, talking about how David looks at his life and sees all the amazing things he has. And I was thinking to myself, that is exactly what God is wanting from us. He wants us to be aware of his presence and his influence in our lives. And he's not asking for us to, like, you know, sell everything and give it to the church or do something with it. But the awareness of that, God's blessed you, that you have been taken care of by him, and to understand where the source is. It's not your own hands. And I think you mentioned that on Sunday, that it's nothing you've done.
That's
so
the
hard.
contrast that you have between Saul and David. Saul is the man who had the talent, the height,
Right.
you know, and all of that, and he did it with blood, sweat, and tears, and that's what he banked on. And then you have David, who doesn't do any of that, right? And the Lord blesses because of his reliance upon the Lord and his relationship with him. That's that mindset that you were talking about, right? And then for David, when Michelle, or however you want to say it, when she criticizes, he goes, "Listen, your family got taken out because of the very thing you're trying to box me into. You're trying to put me into a box that says only worship God in this one safe way. I'm not that person. I'm going to continue to be the person that God's called me to be, and be confident in that. And, you know, good, bad, and the ugly, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, the real guy.
Yep.
And he realized that was the anointing on his life, was because he wasn't Saul.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, and you know, obviously, as the worship pastor, just appreciating your challenge to the congregation that the life of David gives us within just a worshiping individual, right? That if you're someone who has seen the goodness of the Lord show up in your life, you will be someone who worships Him, and we live in a strange world where we kind of today we'll go, I'm going to worship God within my headspace. Right, that there's this like it's only within my head and it's praying silently, but what we see is this unfettered, untethered worshiper in David. And that's a good challenge for dads.
For sure.
You lead your house that way.
You know, I tease you often, and I'm so blessed by you. You got a high five at the staff meeting before you got there, but it was just, you know, your flexibility this weekend to flip the entire service upside down, preach first, and then back it up with living out what we just read in the scripture. That's why we did that, obviously. But to see you have to step away from the microphone because God was dealing with your heart, just, it always blesses me every single time.
Yeah.
And it also blessed me that Tanya kept us on.
That's right.
Yeah.
Of course. That's right. We got good worship.
Like I've said, it's not a good service until Pastor Tess starts balling.
Right.
Then you know something's happening.
We got our good leaders who know how to back up their
I really appreciate that. But you just blessed me, and this weekend was a special time.
It really was.
Yeah,
it really was. And I just think that it's just such a good, like, full circle thing, PG, of going, here's how you view the Lord, right? Your view of the Lord will lead you to fear of the Lord and this great love of Him. And that is that biblical dichotomy thing that we wrestle with as Christians, like, where is this level of grace, and we see holiness in our lives and that kind of thing, but that then will lead you to a greater love in the Lord, and that will lead you to a greater expression of that love in the Lord. And I just see that as just this big giant circle, man, and we see it in the life of David, and we see it within the covenants that God makes with His people, just this overarching theme of grace. God knows who He's making a covenant with. Those are people who are going to fail in that covenant, but He will not. And this has been a home run, man.
So here's a thought we didn't get a chance to explore. David, his heart is to build this temple, you know, to really honor the Lord, and God says, thanks, but no thanks. You're not going to do it. I was able to talk about it, and I connected the passage that we see later from 2 Chronicles, where we find out that the reason behind it, you've got blood on your hands, I can't have you build this temple. But that actually doesn't happen for years.
Right.
I didn't get a chance to talk about that. Some of us, sometimes when God tells us no, and he doesn't give us a reason, just like when you're raising your children, there are times when you say, no, that's not going to happen. I was raised where you didn't even get to question it.
Yeah,
right.
Right, yeah.
Dad said no, so the answer is no.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we're kind of like raising our families to be like, well, I'd like an explanation
Yeah,
behind
right.
that before I obey you.
Yeah.
Sure. David just had to go with it.
Yeah.
He'd be like, fine, I guess I don't be the one to do it. And then later he finds out the reason for it. But David had to have a relationship with God where no is sufficient. And that's the part you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's the sovereignty of God.
Yeah.
Where if God says no, then God knows why.
Yep.
And I think David passed that test.
Why is it so hard to do that, though? I mean, why is it so hard for us to accept that? I mean, because a lot of us, we want to move in that direction. We have these grandiose ideas. I know there's people that my wife and I are ministering to right now. They start out with grandiose ideas. God's just not making it happen. And the question is, why? Am I not, what did I do wrong? And the answer they keep getting is, God's just not wanting me to do it. I mean, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that for me, I have a different perspective in that I am so glad that I don't have to know at times, because I trust that the Lord is much smarter than I.
Yeah.
And I say that not because I have the perfect love of the Lord, but because I know my human failures. I know that like my plans will lead me to destruction. Right. And that is the human condition. Right. And so when we're able to fully trust in the Lord and place it at his feet and just be able to walk away, because what I think we do oftentimes is, God, it's in your hands, and well, you didn't answer me, or you didn't answer me the right way, so I'm gonna take it out of your hands again. And it's this pass back and forth thing, where the first time through, man, if you can go and just say, Lord, this I believe you're stirring this in my heart, the timeline's yours in this, and you're going to make it clear when it needs to happen. I do think that's a level of Christian maturity. I do think it's a level of understanding your place in a holy sovereign God, right? Like your place in
I like that.
I have a healthy fear of who you are. I understand grace and mercy, and I know what love is, and that will include both of those things. And so, my understanding of who God is leads me to a greater trust and reliance on him.
I think, I mean, I agree with you totally. But I think some of it, too, is a test in obedience.
Yeah.
Because I think that a lot of times the people that are asking those questions are people that say, like David, I have all the resources.
Yep.
I can make this happen. If you want it to happen, this can happen. And so you're kind of gearing up for something that you think is inevitable or possible.
Right.
And God's like, no. And you're like, but wait, what about all this stuff that I have that can make it happen? What are you going to do? Are you going to, do it in your own strength like Saul? Or are you going to do it the way David did, which is be obedient in the fact that I was told no.
Right.
I'm not supposed to do it. And I think that's the frustrating part for some people, because they look at it and they're like, all of the things are there that are available for them to do what they need to do. And yet they don't have the opportunity to do it. Yeah, there's Amy there.
Welcome to the studio, Amy.
Welcome, Amy.
Here we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Love it.
See ya.
So here's a fun one, and maybe you guys brought this up at the staff meeting the other day. So who was Solomon? That would be David's son.
Yep.
That gets to build the temple. Who was his mom?
Man.
That was Bathsheba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, hello.
The woman that David
Sinned with.
has an affair with,
Right.
gets pregnant, has her husband killed, is the mom of Solomon, the one who builds the temple.
Yeah, wow.
What is God's crazy genealogy plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep.
But isn't it like God, though, to throw those kind of little like curveballs in there? I mean, through the whole thing.
Anti-hero is the story
Right.
of the scriptures, right?
I mean, how many Rahab?
Person. Yeah.
Rahab
Yep.
protecting the Israelites. She was not, a stellar person either. She was considered a prostitute.
Yep, she was a prostitute, and she was also breaking the rules of the land.
Right.
By hiding the spies.
Right.
I know. There's so many curveballs, and you wonder what is God thinking, because, I think when we become believers in Christ, we start setting up the standard the way we want to set it up, right? And we start setting the ground rules the way things should happen. And then you look at the Bible and like God always changes the script on you. Like, you know, the way you think it should happen is not necessarily the way it's going to happen. I mean, I would say, you know, if we looked at the New Testament, right, and we looked at Jesus' time in the Gospels, for the most part, the Pharisees and Sadducees did what they were supposed to do.
Right.
All the stuff they did, coming after Jesus, doing all the things they said, bringing up the law, even though they were hypocrites in their own right, what they did technically was not wrong. What spiritually it was wrong, but technically it was not wrong in what they did. And so that would be a lot of Christians. We think that we're following the rules the way they should be, and God throws in these curveballs all the time, and it's like, what? You know, how does this work? I thought the rules were blah, 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 blah. And then God's like, no, this is how it's going to work.
But don't you think, too, that heart posture piece that Davis gives us, like, I think about the Pharisees and Sadducees and think they probably did what was right in front of people.
Well, yeah,
but
Jesus
when the door was closed, right, when they went home, they weren't perfect law followers, because that's the story of the
Jesus
law.
called them hypocrites.
Right.
But, you know, even Jesus said in Matthew, says, do what they do, but don't act as they act. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
which is something else we threw out on there Sunday, wasn't it? Kind of fun.
Yeah.
The weak dad says, do as I say, not as I do.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's hard, I think, to wrap our minds around it. But, you know, we know what obedience is. And James says to do the sin you know you're not supposed to do, that's wrong. That's not what you're not supposed to be doing. That's sin. Right. And so that's the heart condition that we have. You know, as God speaks to us through Holy Spirit, we begin to understand what we should be doing, how we should respond, how we should act. And that's what we should follow, not necessarily the moral majority conversation or what everybody else is thinking. It's what God's called us to do. And that sometimes is the hard part. And that's what David did best, is that when his own wife and everybody else is saying, you shouldn't do this. This is not correct. David's like, no, I've got to do this. I've got to dance, you know, as I'm bringing the ark in, you know, Miss Gibby's. You know, this is something that I have to do. That's hard. Yeah. That is a hard thing to do. And that's super encouraging to see somebody that followed through with it and did it, and God honored it. Yeah. And it just kind of encourages us as believers in Christ to believe that way as well. Is that there are times that God's going to ask us to do something that's going to seem counterintuitive to everybody else. It's not going to follow the standard, you know, quota or what people have always said should happen.
That's where I'm always appreciative of the way my parents raised me. They said, look, when we see a brother or sister in ministry getting criticized or don't jump on the bandwagon.
Right.
Pray for them. Yeah. Pray that they're following the Lord, and don't spend your time criticizing them, because you don't know what God's told them to do and the reason behind it, and you're not there, right, to be part of that fellowship. Yeah. And so when I see famous Christians fall, I generally don't spend a lot of time researching what they've done, try to find out that kind of stuff. I pray for their salvation. I pray that they're getting back on track with God, but God may have told them to go minister at that bar, and then the temptation got them, right, or whatever it might be. Yeah. But
it's a wise man there, PG.
Thanks.
Yeah,
because we spend a lot of time. Yep. But I had a fairly new Christian come to me and say, "Oh my gosh, this person just fell, and this is what everybody's saying." I'm like, "Look, Christians are always going to get it wrong, almost all the time. We criticize other Christians. We spend a lot of energy criticizing other Christians, right? Shouldn't we be worshiping the Lord and doing what He's telling us to, and let Him sort it out most of the time?
Yeah,
right? And He will.
Yeah, He will.
He does. He takes care of His own reputation, and we don't need to do it for Him. Yeah, you're right. We spend a lot of time. That's one of the things that's always been beat into my head in ministry, was that be careful with that. You know, do not touch God's anointed. Even David, in the midst of all the things that Saul did to him, refused to bring judgment, or refused to have a prejudice against Saul, regardless of all the proof he had in front of him.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, recently I know that there's been some stuff going on that has disappointed us all greatly. Yeah. I have learned, and I learned this in a kind of an interesting way. So I was a golf coach here at Harbor Light, and we got golf uniforms, and we could put our own little logo on there. And I picked a really famous golfer at the time who was just like seemed super wholesome. And we picked there's kind of like a silhouette of them as our little team motto thing. Yeah. And like within months, they completely went off the rails. And I just realized I cannot build this on people.
Right. Yeah.
Do not build your faith. Do not build things on people, because people will screw it up. Don't build your faith, even at Harbor Light, on Pastor Gary or Pastor Ted or Pastor Alex. Don't build it on people. Build it on the Lord.
That's true. Very true. Very good, important information. Yeah, and we do, unfortunately, we live in a culture where that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And that's why people are, walking away from the faith or walking away from a church because they've built it on a cult of personality and not on God.
But that's nothing new, right?
That's nothing new.
That's
Nothing
just
new.
human
Same
stuff.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
We
and
want
it's
to bring,
been-
I think that's my perfect preacher, right? When they fell, it was like the Lord did some work in me, right? Of like, who's your faith in? You know what I mean? And that's, sadly, we're going to go through that as Christians. And so, yeah.
My first devastating moment like that was Jimmy Swaggart. I love that guy. I mean, I'd watch him every Sunday, watch the stuff. And then when that happened, literally, I mean, I was going through a grieving process as a teenager. I'm like, what in the world, And eventually, he's coming back and doing things now, and his son's taking over the church and stuff like that. But still, it was tough to see somebody like that fall, and you're like, how is that possible? And it was like what Ted was talking about. Holy Spirit working in your heart, going, listen, he's human just like anybody else, and he had an opportunity to run away from temptation. He didn't, and that's the result. And full disclaimer for the podcast. I mean, we're not saying that people that make mistakes are not required to answer to those things, but what we're saying is that God's grace is going to work through it if they're willing to do the work to get back to where they need to go.
And David's a great example.
David's a great example. Yeah.
You mess up, don't give up.
Right.
Yeah, even with Nathan, when Nathan came to him and said, "Hey, man, you messed up with Bathsheba," I mean, he repented. Yeah, his first response was, "I'm upset that you caught me, but then I want to make this right." Yeah. And that should be our response in every situation. It doesn't mean that the things are going to go away. I mean, he still had a child that died because of that thing, but it's the fact that he did try to move forward in that, and that's usually what God looks for in those situations. So repentance is always the first response, in those situations, and move forward. Well, that's it for us today. What's the next Sunday?
So this will be the last one in the series, and it's the covenant we have through Jesus.
So we're going right for the trump card.
There we go.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
This is all about Jesus. The answer on Sunday is Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's right.
So we're going to take a look at that covenant, that new covenant that is made through Christ, and how that affects us.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be good.
Should be
That's
good.
great.
Yeah. And then we're going to wrap it up. And
this has been really, really good, PG.
Yeah, thank you. Super good. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to confess that I found the ideas behind this series somewhere else, but I didn't use any of that resources.
Yeah.
It didn't pan out. So the Lord's just taking me fresh every single week into His Word for myself.
Yeah.
And I couldn't
There's
snag,
nothing new
I couldn't
under the
snag.
sun, right?
Yeah, you get a little seed thought and you move on with what's appropriate. Yeah.
Been
As
really
any good pastor does.
That's right.
FYI to all those out there that are like, how do these guys come up with sermons every Sunday? Well, there's seed ideas all over the place.
Absolutely.
And you pick them up, and like Ted said,
we've talked about this before, right? Ted does it with music. I do it with preaching. You do it with preaching. I hear other people preach. It inspires me. I feel the anointing come upon me, and then I'm not even listening to them anymore. I'm doing my own thing, but it was the anointing of the Lord that spilled over.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and that's been going on for centuries.
Yep.
So yeah, for any critics out there that are like, how is this possible? He's getting this stuff from, there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right.
Yep. Everything has been
Hey, I taught
rehashed.
your real quick. Sorry, your adult ed class, your Sunday school class on Wednesday.
Oh yeah.
And you're going through the Wesleyans,
Yes.
which is the Wesley's brothers, which is really fun, and it is that, right? So, the Charles is the guy who was the singer.
Yeah.
Charles, he's just taking songs from the pubs, right,
Yep.
and turning them into him. So nothing new out there, right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Now you listen to them, they're like, these are really grandiose songs.
Yeah.
But back then,
It was just bar tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave them a playlist of all the songs that they had.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these are all songs, and they're all like, these are all so old. I'm like, yeah, but in the time,
Those were the
those
man.
are the disco hits that were fueling
Disco
the bars and pubs.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well, that's it for us. We'll see you guys next week, and I think we'll all be here, right?
I'm gonna be here. I will be here
Unless the rapture happens because of what's going on. I don't
Yes,
know.
sir.
We'll see.
Yeah.
That's conspiracy theory.
That's
for
right.
now,
Yeah.
So like my dad's favorite ending: here, there, or in the air.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
Good.
I
I
like
like
that.
it.
Talk to you later.
We want you to know, find, discover, change with us. More podcast ending transmission. Now.